Welcome back, everybody. I'm Jerry with Dub Bears Talk, and today we're going to be talking about trade back scenarios. I've talked about trade up scenarios, I've talked about sticking and picking, and I feel like it's becoming more and more valuable to, talk about the trading back. And I think with only having four picks in the draft, we really need to consider it. I know there's a lot of big names at the top, but there is a chance one of those big names, if there's a lot available, could fall. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Comment on this video what you would like to do. Do you think the Bears should just stick and pick and seal their pick? This is the ninth pick, obviously, we're talking about. That they should seal the deal and get one of those top players. Do you think they should try to trade up and likely get Marvin Harrison Jr. or Joe Alt? Or do you think that they should trade back, try to gain capital, get lucky with somebody falling with a lot of talent still available? So let me know down below what you think. And let's get right into it. First, I wanted to talk about likely the players that the Bears are going to be looking at. Anywhere from 9 and trading back. I think you do have to when you're talking about, we'll start with the wide receivers, Malik Neighbors and Rome Odunze. I think there is a chance both of them are there. Rome Odunze and Malik Neighbors, I think it really has been looked at as Malik Neighbors being most people are saying he's the better prospect than Odunze, but a lot of good stuff has come out about Odunze. There was recently I forgot who there was some analyst that was saying Rome Odunze is just a taller Devonte Adams, which is that's big shoes to fill, and that's a lot of pressure, if that were to get out. But I think Malik Neighbors and Rome Odunze have very easily always been the 2 and 3, and if a bunch of quarterbacks go in the top 4 or even top 5, one of those guys is bound to fall at 9, so you have to factor them in. And then as far as in a trade back, you're probably talking about Brian Thomas Jr. or Adonai Mitchell. I don't think you're trading back far enough to get to like Xavier Worthy or Lad McConkey. A lot of those guys are sometimes falling into the first round, likely more second round guys there. But then as far as offensive line goes, you've got Joe Alt, obviously. I don't think he's there at 9, but there is the rare possibility, and I think it would be a good reason for a team to trade up and get him if you don't already want to take him. Olu Fashanu, Talise Fuaga, Troy Fautanu. I can't say his name properly. And then lastly, Jackson Powers Johnson, I think, is the most likely, in a trade back scenario, most likely player that we would take. And then moving on to defensive line, because as we have heard from Ryan Poles, he's planning on dividing the entire coaching staff into 3 teams in a sense, and it's basically going to be one person talking about edge rusher, one person talking about, or not one person, but one team edge rusher, one team wide receiver, one team offensive tackle. And they've pretty much narrowed down those are the positions that they're going. Wanted to clarify that first. But then defensive line, you've got Dallas Turner, Jared Verse, Laiatu Latu, and I don't see us trading back far enough to where we don't get him. Laiatu Latu and Mox usually goes in the late teens, early 20s, and again, I don't see the Bears going back farther than there, so that's likely the case. As far as defensive linemen, you're probably looking at Jerzon Newton, Brian Murphy, or Tavondre Sweat. I think those are probably your only people that you're looking back at, even in a trade back scenario. And now, even with what Ryan Poles said, doesn't seem like they're really looking at interior defensive line. I just don't think you can rule it out. So I figured I would bring it up. I also think that in the specific case with Neighbors, Odunze, and then probably Joe Alt, if those guys are available at 9, the reason that would be very valuable to trade back is because you might not have to trade back as far, and you can get like potentially a second round pick. Like if let's say Rome Odunze falls to the Bears at 9, and I know most Bears fans would really want to take him at 9. I would like to remind you that DJ Moore's on contract for 2 more seasons. They talked about a 2-year extension for Keenan Allen, or I don't know if it was 2 years exactly, but Ryan Poles had said that there are contract extensions that they would like to get done, or a contract extension with Keenan Allen. They just want to see him play first. So if those guys are both locked in for 2 years, I think that at least if we're talking about what the Bears are going to want to do, that would be a good reason to believe that they would be more okay to trading back from Odunze if they can gain an earlier second round pick and still get a guy like Jared Verse or Laiatu Latu in a trade back. Because if you're trading back with, let's say the Broncos, or it's probably like the Colts or the Saints at 14 and 15, you can likely still get Jared Verse or Laiatu Latu there. And if they give you a second round pick, you're getting a early to mid second round pick where you could also address receiver with how deep this class is. Xavier Legette is another huge, like, great receiver that I think could fall out of the first round. And if he's there in the second round, I think you'd probably take Jared Verse and Xavier Legette over, over just taking Rome Odunze and not getting another player. Let me know if you disagree down below. That's just how I feel about it. But getting back to my point, I think you can get more value for the pick if one of those top guys is there. So I think it's very important. Again, also wanted to mention Keenan Allen they're in talks with contracts. So for all the people that would love to have Rome Odunze, and trust me, I would also love to have Rome Odunze at sticking and picking. I think I would still rather have Jared Verse and Xavier Legette over just Rome Odunze. I know Rome Odunze can be a polarizing player, and it would be huge to pair up that wide receiver with your quarterback that you're drafting, which is seeming like it's becoming obvious that it's Caleb Williams. I can understand it. I don't think that that's the biggest need. I think a starting edge rusher is more important than a wide receiver 3. That's where I stand. You can disagree. I wouldn't be mad at Rome Odunze. I would still be very happy and very excited about it. But I see edge as a bigger need. So let's talk about teams that would be likely to trade up. Now, I think you can pretty much talk about anybody from 11 to like 16. Reason I don't include the Jets, I think the Jets are likely, if they're trading up, they're likely going to like 5 if Marvin Harrison Jr. is there. Daniel Jeremiah's most recent mock draft, that's what he has them doing. I also think that you could have them just sticking and picking and taking a tackle or drafting Brock Bowers. I don't know if it would be worth it for them to give a lot to trade up, especially to an area where people might be still trading up for a quarterback, to give that much value. To get a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. or Joe Alt in a trade up, I don't know if that's necessarily the move. So I think they probably just stick and pick, tackle, or draft Bowers, or they trade up not just one pick to the Bears. I don't see that helping them. The Vikings, I also don't think are super likely to trade up with the Bears specifically. It would really have to take one of the guys that they really want to fall, and I don't think they're going to have the knowledge to know that. I think they would likely go somewhere between quarterback, edge, or cornerback. Might take the first corner off the board if their quarterback or an edge rusher isn't there. And then if they're trading up, it's likely to New England, Arizona, or LA. Those are kind of the 3 places that have been talked about. And the Vikings and the Raiders have talked a lot about a potential trade up and have been looked at as the favorites if a team's going to try to jump up to do that. Everybody saw when the Vikings traded up to get the 23rd overall pick as well, in likely a situation where you're pairing those 2 up to go up to 4 to Arizona. People have even said it might require a first round next year, so you'd be given the 3 first round picks up to move up to 4 to take J.J. McCarthy has been a favorite move so far. But then you move on to the Broncos. I think they're kind of in a similar situation. They could take wide receiver or tight end as well, if Brock Bowers is still there. But I think they're kind of in the same situation. I think they're more likely for a trade up just because it's not an interdivision trade. And there is some players that I think the Vikings could take that they would want. I also think it's going to depend on if the Vikings or the Raiders or even the Broncos, any of these teams trade up, because that then moves your 3 teams, your Patriots, Cardinals, Chargers, that moves them back, who the Cardinals specifically have very similar needs to the Bears in, edge rusher. Probably not tackle, might go tackle, but definitely wide receiver. So as far as defensive line and wide receiver, if, the Vikings are the team that trade up to 4, you probably can't trade far past the Cardinals because the Cardinals are going to take one of the people that you want. So I think that has a big effect on this too in a trade back, and that's why I keep saying that it really is going to depend on how the board falls. Because although it is good that like if the Cardinals trade back with the Vikings, let's say they do that and they take JJ McCarthy, it severely increases the chances that we could pick Odunze at 9. But it also, if somebody trades up to 9 and we're trading back, it's going to be harder to trade back past the Cardinals at if that's the 11th or the 13th pick, because they could be taking a wide receiver, they could be taking an edge. So we'll have to, that'll be very interesting to go through. And then after that, I'll just talk about, there has been a couple mock drafts by some bigger names. Specifically, we'll go over first Brad Spielberger from PFF. He has the Bears trading the 9th overall and the 75th overall, which is their third, for the 14th, 45th, and 168. Now this is they would be trading with New Orleans here. So if they're trading with New Orleans, that's likely to get a tackle. This is likely if Joe Alt falls, or they're very high on Olufashanu, Talise Fuaga, and they think that somebody in between could pick them, like the Jets. I think the Jets definitely could go tackle. I think Broncos probably could. I think the Raiders definitely could too. So I think if they want to get ahead of those teams, I think you could see that happen. I think Brad Spielberger makes sense for this. And you're getting, the Chicago's getting that early second round that I talked about. That could be really nice. There is a good chance you could still get Jared Verse or Laiatu Latu at that pick if you do want them to go edge. If somehow everybody falls, I think you have a nice safety blanket in being able to take Jackson Powers Johnson in a trade back. Could even trade back again if you're not happy with that. So I like that. I think that is kind of contingent on a tackle falling, though, because I would see that as the biggest need for the Saints. And there is a lot of good tackles, and a lot of them could go before. And then next one is Christopher Knox from Bleacher Report. He has the Bears trading just the 9th pick to the Colts for the 15th, the 82nd, 117th, which I believe is a first. That's their, so the Colts first, a third, and then their fifth this year, and then a 2025 third for next year. Now he has them doing this because Odunze falls to 9. So I think this one is kind of contingent on Odunze falling, and they go, holy cow, Odunze here, let's trade the house to get him. And the Bears in return are getting 2/3. They're only going back 6 picks, which really isn't that far. 2/3 and a fifth for, again, 6 picks. I think that would be insane value. Now you could argue, now you're missing out on Odunze, but again, this is another pick where you could still likely get Jared Verse, and then you have more potential hits in the later rounds, 2 more this year, 1 more next year, on where you can hit on wide receiver in such a deep wide receiver class. You also have the opportunity to fill more positions. So I don't want to leave that out of the question just because, most people aren't going to want to miss out on Rome Odunze, but I don't think we should leave this out because we would have an opportunity to get a lot more talent across the board. I could understand Ryan Poles hasn't done very well so far at picking wide receivers in the later rounds. I do just believe this is a more deep wide receiver class. I think even if Dallas Turner doesn't make it, I would be fine with the Bears taking him. I think he's an athletic freak. If he's there at 9, we stick and pick there, and then we take Brendan Rice in the 3rd round. People say he could go in the 4th too. I think if you take him in the 3rd round, even if it's a reach, I think that would be huge. Because although, yes, you do have DJ Moore and Keenan Allen, you're not attributing the 9th overall pick to a wide receiver 3. You're getting a starting player for a position of need at edge rusher. And then in the 3rd round, you're getting Caleb Williams, one of his favorite targets through college, that also happens to be like 6'4" and very fast. And he's also Jerry Rice's son. So I feel like pairing all that together, I think the value of being able to get Brendan Rice in the 3rd round over, or even if you end up in the situation where you get a 2nd round pick, taking one of those guys, if Ladd McConkey's there, if you think Xavier Worthy's good, if you want to buy into the 4.21 40 hype, which a lot of those guys typically don't work out, but that would add another depth to the wide receivers. We have Keenan Allen, who's a little bit bigger, massive catch radius wide receiver. We have Cole Kmet, who's just huge target, who's also good at blocking, but been a great tight end, easily top 10. Could make an argument for top 5, probably not, but he's easily a top 10 tight end in the league. Then you have DJ Moore, who's a very do-it-all guy. And then you would have Xavier Worthy, who's your speed demon downfield, take the top off the defense, keep them honest in that regard. And I wouldn't be against it. I just don't like how everybody likes to buy into the hype at the combine. But aside from that, I think being able to take a receiver early in the second round and solidify your edge rusher with the ninth, or in the trade back scenario, I think for me that is the best position right now. Whether they trade back or stay is going to be very dependent on how the board falls. It's really going to be, I think, the biggest move. I think when you look at like Caleb Williams at 1, whoever Washington decides to pick at 2, I think where the biggest where the board starts to fall and all the dominoes start to fall over is when the Patriots, if they stick and pick, they're starting to say that they could trade back. And that could happen. I think if whatever trade back it is, if it's the Patriots or the Cardinals or even the Chargers, I think that is where everything is going to start to change. People's draft boards are going to get messed up. They're going to have to change their decision. They're going to have to, it's really going to mess up everybody else moving forward, because you're likely getting another quarterback coming off the board. You only now have 2 teams that have a huge wide receiver interest in the top 8. I don't see the Titans going wide receiver with having DeAndre Hopkins and Calvin Ridley. I don't see the Falcons going wide receiver with having Drake London, Darnell Mooney, still have Kyle Pitts, who's technically a tight end, but they could go wide receiver. I just don't see that as their biggest need. They have a lot of other needs. Likely go edge rusher there and have the ability to take the first one off the board. So I think if a quarterback, some team trades up for a quarterback in the first 4 picks, I think it almost locks you in to getting a receiver at 9. Or if Ryan Poles has the meetings and they determine they're not going to go wide receiver, if they see the value in trading back and getting an edge rusher higher than just sticking and picking Odunze, I think they do the trade back. And then, like I said, you can get a second round draft pick for probably only moving back a couple picks. And I want to keep reiterating that, because most of my comment section has been, we need to get Odunze, we need to get Odunze, we need to get Odunze, because I'm assuming most of those people probably wanted to keep Justin Fields and trade back and get Marvin Harrison Jr. And now believe that we need receiver. But I think having DJ Moore and having Keenan Allen, having Cole Kmet and Gerald Everett in with a coach, our head coach Shane Waldron runs the highest percentage of 21 personnel, which is 2 wide receivers, 2 tight ends, 1 running back. So the way that works is it's just for running back and just running back and tight end. So the 2 stands for the 2 tight ends, the 1 stands for the running back, 21 personnel. That also means that there is just 2 wide receivers. There's the 5 offensive linemen and the quarterback. Altogether, that totals 11 players. So if you didn't understand that, now you do. But Shane Waldron ran the highest percentage of 21 personnel in the league last year. He also had the highest success rate with 21 personnel. So if you want to take a receiver at the 9 pick, you also have to ask yourself, who is going to sit? Is it going to be Rome Odunze, who likely, I guess neighbors could happen, but is it going to be Odunze? Is it going to be DJ Moore? Or is it going to be Keenan Allen? And I do understand that you can sub people in, and Shane Waldron was with the Seahawks last year. How did they do it? Because they took JSN in the first round last year. Obviously, they made that work. I'd also like to mention that they didn't have as much success last year as they did the previous year. Not that that is the full reason, but I think that has to come into account. So that's going to be it for this one. Again, I think that the Bears should trade up. I think it's really going to depend on how the board falls. I am fully against trading up at this point from the 9 pick to anywhere. But I do believe I would be okay with sticking and picking Odunze. I'd be okay with sticking and picking Dallas Turner. I think you should probably trade back if you want to get Verse, or Laiatu Latu. And if you get the opportunity to get a first next year or something, and you want to go back into the late teens, like 18, 19, 20, and then get Jackson Powers Johnson, and then, you probably have to sign an edge or a receiver. I could listen to that too. I just don't think we should trade up. I'd like to do what I just said there. So again, let me know what you think down below. Thank you for watching. And I have been having some problems with OBS, so I missed out on a couple videos. I'm trying to keep up on those. I do have a mock draft coming out. I was trying to do a mock draft Monday, but my OBS was freaking out. So I think we're working now. But thank you for watching and have a great day.